To start off, I've already made a mold of my OEM kick panel. When we start the video, you'll see that there's already an MDF ring and a little MDF support attached to my already molded kick panel. All you gotta do, it's really easy to mold anything. If you want to turn it into a fiberglass piece, just spray it with a little bit of WD-40 and kind of wipe it off with a rag. Then, make sure, smear it around, make sure it's covered the part real well, and then go ahead and just lay fleece over it. Whatever material you're using. You can even do a fiberglass piece just with pure fiberglass mat, or I usually just use fleece. So that's what I've done to start this video out, is I've gone ahead and sprayed my OEM kick panel that's from the 99 Mustang, and laid my fleece over it and soaked in the fiberglass resin into it and waited for it to harden, and then pulled them apart, and that's what we're going to start with. So as you can see here, we've got everything going, and I've got my spray adhesive out, and I'm going to go ahead and spray the back of this kick panel that I just made up. And notice I've got the fleece underneath, big enough piece to cover this whole entire deal. And go ahead and start by tucking everything under just one side, really. We need to make sure we can stretch this thing pretty well. And in this video, I'm going to actually show you the wrong way to do this, the wrong way to stretch, and show you how to fix it if you do end up doing it, or end up having to. You really don't run into any situations where you have to do this, but just notice or remember that you can always stretch this stuff as far as you need to stretch it to. Sometimes it feels like you can, or it looks like you can't, but you can. You just have to keep pulling as hard as you can. So you got to make sure these supports underneath are pretty strong. But just go around the part, keep tucking, respray if you need to get a little more tack under there. But I'll just let this go for a second here, and just so you can see. See, and this is what happens sometimes if you end up with a huge chunk of material in the back that you just think you can't pull out. A lot of people end up cutting it off, which, you'll see here in a second, leaves a giant gap in the back. So what I'm going to do, since I cut this off, is I'm going to pull it and try to get it as close to looking flat as I can. Always remember, though, you can avoid this, but just going to show you just in case something happens where you can't. We're going to go ahead and cut the rest of this stuff off. Not all of it, not really close to the part, but just get all this excess stuff out of our way for right now. So now we're going to take a staple gun and put a few staples in the MDF ring underneath, because this fleece is not laying flat to it right here, just the way it curved up. So we're gonna force the fleece down to touch the ring, so everything comes together smooth. And then just test fit your grill. If you have a grill, go ahead and just kind of eyeball it, see if everything looks good. It's a good thing to do in every step along the way in anything. Just make sure all your parts fit before you go too far. Now I've mixed up all the fiberglass resin here, and I'm just going to soak it in pretty thick. Make sure you get real good coverage on this stuff, and make sure it soaks as deep as you can get it. Usually doesn't soak all the way to the bottom. So don't be afraid to put as much as you can. Just make sure it darkens the fabric pretty good. Also on the edges, make sure you get a real good deep coat, so it'll bond to the fiberglass underneath it, or the fleece underneath it. See right here, I'm just kind of toying with this little gap here, trying to make it flat. as flat as I can get it. The hole really doesn't matter, but I need everything to be flat. I don't need any bulges sticking out. And you can do this with anything, not if you just accidentally have to cut off a giant chunk of it. Just, you can do this with anything if you end up with a hole, or even if you have to patch something. So we'll go ahead and take our first piece, a little bit of fiberglass, just cut little squares, however big. Probably need to overlap the hole at least by a couple inches on each side. And I'm just going to soak the bottom of it here so I can get a good adhere to the back of this. And do need to note, I've also let this part dry underneath, so it's hard. I don't smush it in when I'm pressing here. But I'll lay my first piece, go ahead and push pretty hard into it, make sure it sticks to that part under there. And you can also notice I didn't wet the middle part of it, just to make sure I get an even curve and it's not, I don't, push on it and it dents in or anything right now. Just going to add this next piece to it right here on the back. Also good to note, if you ever have to or end up doing something like this, it needs to be on the back somewhere you can't see. Just make sure you pull the fabric around the part enough to where you're not going to run into any situation like this where it's visible. In the end, this will all look normal. It won't stand out at all. It'll all look the same and uniform, but still, it's just better to do this in hidden areas if you have to. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover this thing up pretty good. Notice I'm speeding it up here for you so you don't have to watch, but just putting this on pretty thick, adding another piece to that gap, the center part of it, just for strength. A little bit more of help it be a little more uniform over that crease. But as you can kind of see on that video, that those last few frames, that you really can't tell. Now we're just gonna throw our Bondo up on it. When you Bondo, you don't have to be good at Bondo, and not many people are. I'll be honest with you, I'm not. I go ahead and just slather a bunch of it on there. Just get a bunch on there to work with. And one deal with Bondo is you kind of have to move fast with it a lot of times. So I don't really take a whole lot of time in being gentle with the Bondo. Sometimes it can help you out later, if you are good at it, you don't have to do as much sanding, but it is also good to wear gloves in this too. I usually don't, but I regret it most of the time. Stuff is terrible to get off of your hands. You see I have my shaping tool here. This is just to demonstrate what happens when it's too late. I'll show you what happens in the first